I think everyone can agree that Final Fantasy Tactics was a special game. It was one of the games that set the standard for the entire genre after all. A gripping, intense story which was at times inspiring and at times heartbreaking. Coupled with a cast of truly memorable characters such as Ramza, Delita, the random characters who I used early on and then forgot about, and Agrias, the Holy Knight, to name just a few. Agrias not only looked really cool, but was also an incredibly strong character when she joined your ragtag party. Now, of course, the sad part is that Square Enix hasn't done much with these characters besides a PSP remaster, which was great, sure, but we all wanted more. We all have wanted to see these characters again, like old friends who we haven't seen in over a decade. But I suppose that is one of the things I enjoyed the most about Final Fantasy War of the Visions. The Tactics crew exists here alongside Cloud, Lightning, the Warrior of Light, and a whole bunch of weirdos that you might also like. Most importantly, we can take our queen into battle once more. The graphics might be a bit different, but it's still her, and that's what matters. But keeping in mind that she was quite a powerful character in the original game, how well did she hold up in War of the Visions? Was she still a monster, or did it take her down a couple of steps? I guess there's only one way to find out. So how good was Agrias actually? But for those of you who aren't familiar with War of the Visions, I should mention that automated battles are the most common form of PvP in this game. Now that might sound somewhat dull, cause that's how I felt the first time I heard about it, but there is a lot more to it than you might initially think. Characters have their own behavior depending on the type of character they are, and you have a lot of customization options available to you which can drastically change the flow of a battle. From equipment, espers, vision cards to just straight up turning off skills you don't want your characters to use, let's just say it's a more complex system than you might think. With that out of the way, Agrias definitely made a big impact in the metagame when she first arrived. She was a very effective tank, and her job was to get into the faces of her opponents and generate some hate towards herself. Hate is an actual mechanic in War of the Visions. If a unit has hate, then opposing units will target that particular unit, if possible, until the hate wears off. She had a variety of things going for her that made it very difficult to get rid of her quickly. Her 20% resistance towards magic made it possible for her to basically just shrug off magic attacks. But she was no slouch when it came to sponging physical attacks either. But Agrias could also deal some damage herself, as she had a very respectable attack stat, especially for a tank. But that's not all she had to offer, however. One of the deadliest weapons that she had was her access to status effects that could really cripple the opposing team. This was something that really set her apart from other tanks. Agrias' limit burst, which could hit multiple targets, had a high chance of causing confusion. This was effectively a game changer if you managed to land the confusion on one unit, let alone two. But confusion wasn't the only status effect that Agrias could afflict an opponent with. Although the possibility of landing these effects was drastically lower, North Swain's Strike could cause disable, while Judgment Blade could inflict stop. A unit afflicted by any of these status effects could be considered out of the battle entirely. But practically speaking, besides the limit burst, Taunting Blade was the only offensive skill that people usually went with, which is a skill that allowed Agrias to generate more hate while also dealing some damage. But the fact that she had access to such disruptive skills meant that you could build Agrias as a more offensive unit if you wanted to. A typical team formation would feature a healer like Ayaka and a high damage dealing unit such as Frederica. Ayaka kept everyone healthy, could even revive Agrias with full life if needed, while Frederica could pummel the opposing team from the rear, while Agrias drew all the aggro. Killfae was also a very commonly seen teammate, as she could handle Cid and evasive units like Vanera. But here's something we all learn about War of the Visions sooner or later. No matter how overpowered a unit may seem to be, a counter for it either already exists or is right around the corner. Kain from Final Fantasy IV was a very strong Pierce-based unit, and keep in mind that Agrias had a weakness for this type of attack. Kain was able to just decimate Agrias quite efficiently. Not too long after Kain, Dwayne the Dark Knight showed up, and he kickstarted the era of Dark Element dominance, and this domination mostly continued all the way to the first anniversary. And I think it's time to talk about the EX upgrade that came alongside the first anniversary. You see, until now, the max level a unit could have was level 99. The EX upgrade allowed newer units to attain a maximum level of 120. This meant 21 extra levels of stats and skills. Older units who were stuck at level 99 were objectively power crept, compared to the newer stuff. This obviously made a lot of players quite unhappy. But Gumi, the developers, had an idea. They decided that they will give older units the EX upgrade over time to at least make them somewhat viable. It was an arduously slow process as each character had to get a unique upgrade, and Gumi also had to make sure that these updated characters don't outshine the new ones. That ain't great for business after all. So how long do you think it took Agrias to get her EX upgrade? 1 month? 3 months? How about a year and a half? That's right, for some inexplicable reason, the tactics crew was left alone and ignored even as the player base kept asking for them to return. Imagine if you had started the game around the first year anniversary. You might have thought, hey, I can't wait to play with the tactics characters. Well, you just had to wait 18 months for that to happen. I don't have to imagine that because I lived it. Alright, so it took a long time for Agrias to get her EX upgrade. Could all that waiting mean that her upgrade would be amazing and make her an incredible character once again?
Nope.
You see, the game had changed quite a bit since the days of her dominance. Offensive units had evolved, and the more recent ones just hit far too hard for even the most recent tanks to handle. Her EX upgrade just didn't do much at all to make her viable or give her even some serious survivability. As for her skills, Judgment Blade was improved, which now had a 30% increased chance to hit. But to be fair, she still wasn't likely to hit a properly built evasion unit, even with the buff. The support skill Knight's Honor now gave her some natural hate, which was nice, I guess. Her last skill, North Swain Strike Destruction, got rid of Protect as well as any physical barriers that the opponent might have had. These might be some nice tricks, but they aren't really worth it, I would say. And it also didn't help that her return coincided with the arrival of Snow from Final Fantasy XIII, who was a modern bruiser type of unit, who could dish out a fair bit of damage while still being able to take quite a bit of damage as well. For players who didn't already have Agrias, it didn't make much sense to try to get her now instead of Snow. Pulling for a character isn't cheap after all. Of course, the fans of Final Fantasy Tactics still pulled for her because it's Agrias, damn it. I know I did. And the crazy ones pulled for both of them. Like I did. So how good was Agrias then? Well, you could say that she definitely had her time in the limelight, I guess. She was an ever-present threat when she first came out, and it was a while before units came around who could handle her properly. Her late arrival in the EX era didn't do her any favors, nor did the developers spend more than 2 minutes thinking about her EX upgrade. But hey, even for the most competitive meta babies out there, it's not all doom and gloom. Every now and then we get PvP content which forces you to build a team within a certain cost. Agrias has a lower cost, which might help her find a place on your team in such situations. In an environment like that, she could actually play a pretty big role. As for her fans, there's always a way to make practically any character somewhat usable. Agrias might have trouble dealing with the best units out there, but she can certainly hold her own against quite a bit of the roster. So if you're a die-hard Agrias fan, then I'm sure you'll find some sort of customization combo to make her a force to be reckoned with, at least against some teams. That's the beauty of War of the Visions. Pretty much every character can be useful when piloted the right way. There is also another type of upgrade coming up with the 3rd year anniversary. Who knows, maybe the developers will give her some love this time? That is, if you already have her. If you don't, there's no telling how long we'll have to wait before we see the tactics characters again. It took a year and a half last time, maybe the developers will be nicer this time, we'll just have to wait and see. But hey, that just means that you have an awesome character to look forward to, right?